Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today on this new GeneXus webinar. What is a low-code platform and how can it help you become better at your job? By Sergio Pruski. Sergio Pruski is VP of USA Operations at GeneXus Consulting. He has been developing applications with GeneXus for over 25 years. Sergio is a founding partner of InStyle Software, an ERP company that focuses in the apparel industry. In 2018, Sergio joined GeneXus Consulting Inc. to help GeneXus clients in the USA reach their full potential. At this time, I now present to you Sergio Pruski.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for the introduction. Today, we're going to be talking about low-code platforms, and I'm going to explain what low-code platforms are. Before that, let me talk about models for a second. So, like we can read here, essentially all models are wrong, but some are useful. So we're going to talk about useful models today. And what is the history of low-code? So low-code is a new term, not necessarily a new concept. So this concept started probably more than maybe 30 years ago, and the name has changed, but the concept has pretty much stayed the same. So we used to call it case, then went to 4GL, then rapid application development, and now we call it low code, and sometimes we even call it no code. So I do want to talk about the difference between low code and no code. These are two very different concepts. So to talk about no code and low code, we have to talk about the concept of citizen developers. So what are citizen developers? So these are basically advanced users in your organizations that maybe are really good with Excel, or they have created an application using Access or something in between. So these are not developers, they're users, but they have the capability of creating something that maybe not necessarily based on code, but that creates an application that can be of value to the organization. So if you read this quote and take your time to read it, I'm not going to read it back to you, but I do want to the bold, the highlighted is mine, actually. It wasn't part of the quote. So no matter how hard IT tries to block it. So the future belongs to rapid application development tools. Let's call them low code. And it doesn't matter how hard IT tries to block it. So why are we saying this? Why is it that IT is trying to block it? It's probably many reasons. We're not going to get into all these reasons, but at least one of these reasons is control, and what I'm used to, what I've been doing for many years. So it's hard to change, right? Even for IT, it's hard to change. So when we talk about software development, people call it an art. People call it an engineering discipline. So where do we want to be? We are here talking about software engineering. We're not talking about the art of creating beautiful code. We're talking about the software engineering side of creating productive, useful, valuable code. So that's what we're really talking about. So to talk about low code, we have to talk about different aspects of software development. So model-driven engineering or model-driven architecture has been the way that we develop software for a long time now. But we can't talk about low code without talking about domain-specific languages. So these are basically languages, programming languages, or domains where we have our own needs, our own solutions or needs for solutions that are not generic. So we are talking about complex systems. We are talking about things that are not necessarily tools that are able to create anything, but basically are tools that are able to solve a specific domain. So we want to create simple solutions, simple models, but reality is complex. So how do we go from complex business systems to simple solutions? How do we make that transformation? And this is where it gets really tricky, because systems are not simple. Systems are complex. And if systems were complex, 10 years ago, they are even more complex today. There are many technologies, many layers, many ways to create software, many technologies. We can even think of how we refer to software developers right now. If you look for help wanted ad for software, full stack is the name that you're going to see. What does full stack is? Why can't we just say we need a Java programmer, or we need a C# programmer? So it's much more complex to develop applications right now that we had to create a new term, which is the full stack, a stack of tools that we need to know before we can become a useful developer for a corporation. So in the introduction, I was introduced as working for GeneXus Consulting, which is one of the GeneXus distributors here in the US, and based out of California. And here is a diagram of the Forrester wave. So they and Gartner basically are the two biggest consulting companies that we classify everything into different categories. This is the in particular the low-code development platforms, and there's I don't know 15 solutions here, and one of them is GeneXus. So what did Gartner have to say about Forrester? Sorry, what did Forrester have to? They really wouldn't like that I call them Gartner, but anyway. So what did Forrester have to say about GeneXus? So basically describe GeneXus as the best low-code tool you've never heard of. So we are very proud of our tools, and we have to do better when it comes to marketing and name recognition and stuff like that. So let me talk about some of the myths around low-code. So myth number one, low-code platforms are only for citizen developers, not pro developers. So in reality, the success rate of a citizen developer compared to a developer using low-code platforms is much lower. Of course, if you have the expertise to know what an application looks like, how to organize an application, what are data structures, etc., it's going to help you with low-code platforms too. The second myth, or one of the myths, is that low-code platforms eliminate the need for any programming. So this is where we can talk about low-code versus no-code. So no-code and low-code are really two very different categories of tools. They shouldn't really even be talked about together because they're so different. No-code platforms are really platforms for really end users, for citizen developers, where you don't code, you just select a few options, and that creates usually some kind of web application that has a specific functionality, but is being predefined by whoever built that platform. With low code, you should be able to build any application that is within the domain. So in the case of GeneXus, for example, any business application. GeneXus is not a generic tool. You're not going to build a compiler or an operating system with GeneXus. You're going to build business database-driven business applications with GeneXus. So the other myth is that low-code platforms mean small scale. So a lot of the low-code platforms are very new, so they don't have a track record of building large applications. In the case of GeneXus, that is not true because GeneXus has been around for 30 years, so there's a big track record. The GeneXus of 30 years ago, of course, looked very different than the GeneXus of today, but the ideas, the philosophy, the actual theory behind it has not changed. So low-code platforms do not mean small scale. There are banking systems, government systems, ERP systems, insurance, etc., built with low-code platforms. So it really doesn't mean scale. Some of these low-code platforms, by the way, are pretty expensive. So they wouldn't make any sense for small scale anyway. So what I would like to do next is I would like to show you a demo of our low-code platform, which is GeneXus. And to do that, I'm going to basically start from scratch. I'm going to concentrate on the coding side in this diagram. I'm not going to go through every aspect of development. There's a lot more than just coding, but today I'm going to basically concentrate on the coding. So I took a couple steps. I created a new empty project, so you wouldn't have to wait for me while I create the project. I also selected what platform I'm going to use, and I selected Java. as the server-side platform, and I selected SQL Server as the database that I'm going to use. There's other choices, but those are the choices I selected. I also selected or created a database to store the data as I'm testing. My test database is going to store my data as I enter it. So I created that in my local notebook computer. And I also selected this checkbox that says that I'm going to use the authorization module of the GeneXus Access Manager. There's going to be a webinar, I think next week or the week after, just about this security module. So I'm not going to go into much detail, just that I'm going to use it as a login for users. After that, I'm going to select one of the design systems available. In my case, I selected a design system called K2B Tools, but there's many other design systems available with the tool. There's a whole marketplace of tools around GeneXus, and you can actually download some of these design systems from the marketplace. Some of them are free, some of them are paid, some of them are concentrated on specific functionality. In this case, I'm using one that I selected that I like. So I went through the wizard, which is basically selecting the design system. Then I select the sizes that I want for different things. I actually left all the defaults there. I selected the colors, as many options. I selected blue as my base color structure. And then I went through, I actually went through the demo, make sure that everything would work before I had to do it live. So what I did is I took some screen captures of how it's going to look when it's done. So I want you to know actually what I want to build before I start. That way you understand what I'm trying to accomplish and you understand the demo. I think it would help you understand the demo better if you know where I'm trying to go. So what I'm trying to build is this application that you see here. This is a picture of it, of course. I want to have a menu at the top. And I want to have customers and products, and I want to have an update of customers and an update of products, and I want to have sales orders, and I want to be able to insert or update or change a sales order. I also want to build a dashboard, and I want to have some information presented as a table, some information presented as a graph. So with that said, I'm going to jump into my demo. So let me switch here to the development environment. So this is the GeneXus development environment, and one of the things that comes pre-built in this design system called K2B Tools is the menu. So there's a menu already defined, and I just used it as default. I added my hello world. So this is the application that we're going to build at runtime. So this is running against the SQL Server database. And this is just my hello world test. Just make sure that it works. So it's reading the database. Everything's nice. So the security menu I said is automatic. So we didn't do anything here. This just comes with the tool just by checking that checkbox that I showed you. So now let's build what I showed you that I wanted to accomplish. So we're going to start by creating a new object. In this case, it's going to be a transaction. And transactions in GeneXus define data structures. I'm not going to do a GeneXus training. I'm just going to show you how it works. If you have any questions, we're going to be answering questions towards the end of the presentation. So I'm going to create a new structure called customer, and I'm going to have an ID. And GeneXus automatically knows that's of type ID. I'm going to have a customer name. And again, this is going to be automatically classified as a name. I'm going to have a customer address, and there's a domain or a data type called address. I do like my address is a little different than the default for GeneXus. If I can find between all these properties. Okay, I'll look for it later if we have time. And what else do we want? We want, for example, a customer balance amount, and that is also going to be automatically linked to the amount domain. So I'm going to save this, and I'm going to apply now that this tool that we call patterns. So patterns are predefined functionality that I can apply to a structure. So the entity services functionality, for example, is it's a work with. basically. So what it is that list that I showed you in my slides before, and we're going to see in a minute what it looks like in a few minutes once this is done. But if we look at our hello world, so this is our work with for hello world. Quite a sophisticated hello world, if you ask me, but a minimum amount of work to create this, like 5 minutes. So I'm going to go back to GeneXus, and I'm going to also apply the second pattern that is called prompt. And a prompt is basically it's a selection list. So we can use it when we are working in other structures that need to select a customer. So we can bring up a prompt or a selection list for customers. And then finally, I'm going to apply this transaction form, and I'm just going to apply it and save it. So I really didn't change any defaults. I just went with the defaults for this. Eventually, maybe we'll change something if we have time towards the end of the presentation. I'd like to make a couple changes so you see how it impacts. So I'm going to repeat this pretty much the same thing for a product transaction. Product. And when I type the period, it just brings the word up, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to give it an ID. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to add a price, and the price is going to be an amount. What else do we need? Product price. I mean, I guess that's pretty much all we need for now. ID, product price. So I'm going to save this, and I'm going to repeat that process of creating the pattern. So I'm going to save this. And I'm going to repeat the process of creating a prompt for it and creating the transaction pattern for it too. So it takes a second just to create this. And then I'm going to go to my prompt. And I'm going to change this to allow insert. I did it for the other one, but I didn't describe what I was doing. So I can add a new product as I'm looking for a product. If it's not in my list, that will allow me to create a new one. And then I'm going to repeat this for my transaction form. So the transaction form is the update. And I'm just going to say yes, and I'm going to save it. So now that I've done this, I need to add these options to my menu so that they show up. And I have this menu predefined, and I'm going to add a submenu here. And I'm going to call this submenu setup. Okay. And I'm going to actually move it up to the top here. And I'm going to add a couple options, which are going to be my customer. And I'm going to add also my products. Okay, so there's my customers, my products. So I'm going to save this. So now I'm going to run this application. But before I run it, of course, I need to have those tables where I'm going to store the customer and the products created in the database. So one of the things that GeneXus does for me is actually keep internally, it keeps a data model of all the database structures that I'm using. It creates them based on those transactions, so those transactions are not necessarily the same as table structures, but it creates them based on the transactions. So it's going to analyze those objects, and it's going to tell me, well, to store the data for these particular transactions that you created, we are going to have to create these tables. So that's going to show up in a second. It's just telling me at the bottom what it's doing. This will take about probably another 30 seconds or so. So we have to be a little patient here. I hope everybody's enjoying themselves, maybe working from home. It's still okay, just taking a little taking its time a little bit here to build all the screens that we talked about. We were clicking and clicking. So finally here we have what we were looking for. So it says, oh, I have to create two tables. The product table is going to have this structure, and this would be the SQL statement that you would have to run to create that. And here's the customer, and you would have to create that SQL statement. But we are not going to have to do it manually. GeneXus actually puts those SQL statements into a Java application. It runs it for us, and it just creates the tables. So if we actually were to go and look at our SQL database, so here's a SQL database. We go to tables. We can see these are all the security tables at the bottom, the ones that say have the schema gam. So there's our hello world. And if we refresh this, we will see that there should be those new tables that we just created. There's a customer table and there's the product table. Of course, these tables are empty. So if I select, right click, and I look at the information of, there's going to be, it's going to just be empty, right? There's, oops, it continued while I was talking, but give me a second. So you see it's just totally empty. So let's go back to our application. So it automatically runs the application for me. So we had it running here, and now we have it running again. So I'm going to close one of these two, and I'm just going to go through the login process. I have my password saved, so I can just log in. There we are. So we added this setup menu, right? And here we have customers and products. I'm going to go to customers. So here are my customers, and there are no customers, so I'm going to add a new one. And I'm going to assign an ID, for example, ID 1. And the name is going to be John. And the address 555 Main Street. And this is going to be in New York, and zip code 10101, something like that. And we have a balance, and I'm just going to initialize to 100. Doesn't matter. Could be 0. So I'm going to go back to my customers, and there's my new customer. I can click on it to view it. I can click on this icon to update it. So all of this was created just with a few clicks, right? This is pretty impressive. If you're not impressed right now, I'd be really shocked if you're not impressed. So anyway, 777 Main Street in Santa Rosa, California. That's where I'm at right now, and no balance. So here's a couple of customers, and I'm just going to create one more, and this is going to be, it's with my letters. Oh, ID. Number 3, and this is going to be Peter. And for address, 123 State Street in Santa Monica, California, 90101, something like that. Okay, and we're going to confirm this. So I just created 3 customers, so if we need to, later on when we go to look for customers, we have someone there. And then let's set up some products, and we're going to repeat pretty much the same. And I'm going to create product number 10, let's say, and the name of the product. Okay, yes, I have to do this. Toilet paper, you know that's what you want to buy, and the price is like $29.95. And we're going to repeat this a couple of times, and we need some. I don't remember what number I put. Paper towels, and the price would be $19.95, let's say, and then another product, and I'm going to add another product, and I'm going to put this one 30. And maybe we need some hand soap. And the price for this is $7.95. Okay, so we have some products, we have some customers. So now we are going to go back and add to this presentation. We want to add a sales order. If you remember my slides, I said I want to do I want to have an application that has a customers, he has products, and he has a sales order. So I'm going to create a new product, a new transaction, sorry, another transaction, and you see there's a lot of different types of objects, but we're just doing the basics here. So we're going to create another transaction. This is going to be a sales order. So our sales order, it's going to also have an ID. And I forgot to do it for the other two. So I'm going to do it now. For this one, order number, I'm going to say true. And I'm going to start with 1001. And there's also going to be a sales order date. And there would be a customer. So you can see here, I'm going to do something that is maybe unexpected, which I'm going to put my customer name, and I'm going to also put the customer address. So this is unexpected in the sense that you probably were not thinking that I'm going to put the address and the name here. That kind of to show you that these are not really tables, they're more like views. So I'm going to create a new level. I'm going to call this level detail. And I'm going to keep using that period where it brings me my description, my first part of the description. Sorry, this is actually going to be my product ID, and I'm also going to have my product name, and I'm going to have my product price, and I'm going to have my quantity, another domain that is automatically defined, and then I'm going to have my detail amount, which would be, and that's also one of our domains, amount, and it's going to be a formula. So I'm going to skip over to the formula here, and I'm going to say that the product price times the times the quantity. I guess I didn't save it yet, so it's not going to take it. Let's save it. So I'm going to do it again. So price times quantity, sales order detail quantity. That's my formula, right? Product detail quantity. Okay, and then I'm going to add a total for the sales order, which I'm going to put at the bottom. But if you see, it's indented back to the top level, so it really belongs to the top level. I'm just going to call it total. And this one, I'm going to also say it's an amount, and it's going to be a sum of my the detail amount, sales order detail amount. So that's going to be a sum of a formula, which is okay. We can do that. So that gives me my sales order structure and all the attributes that I need. I'm going to add one more thing here, which is going to be a rule. So these are business rules, and these are basically generic rules. And I'm going to do a default the date to today. So that's a formula that defaults a day to today. There are many rules that I can use. This is just a simple example, so you see that there is coding in no-code tools, and we actually have a whole language to do coding. So I'm also going to go to my patterns, and I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm going to apply this simple pattern. And I'm not going to create a prompt because we're not going to be selecting this from anywhere. I am going to skip. Oh, I guess I was selecting, I did the wrong one. Doesn't matter. The one or the other and one, there's no order. So now we're going to run this application one more time. And when, of course, when we run it, we're going to need another couple tables. If you've been following along, you'll probably, and you've mentally been thinking of what we need. So you've probably realized that we need two tables, one for the, where are we, sales order structure. So one for the top level and one for the detail, right? We're going to need two tables. So we'll see what GeneXus thinks we need. Probably the same, but we're going to give it a second to come up with a impact analysis. So once we have a database already created, GeneXus always keeps a track of what we already have and when we are creating what's new, and it compares them. And the difference is what we call an impact analysis. So that impact analysis will show us a report that shows me the differences between what I had and what I have now. Sometimes those differences are simple. like new fields, new tables, like in our example. Sometimes we move something from one table to another, and GeneXus will create actually a program that moves the data from one place to another. So it actually creates a program that reads a table and writes another table in the process. So here we have it, sales order header. It's a little, there's some constraint here for foreign keys, and the same with the detail, constraint from foreign keys. So I'm just going to say everything is good, reorganize, go ahead, and it's now running the reorganization. It finished with the reorganization, and we're just going to close the screen, and we're going to just take a quick second to go over to, well, since we're here already, I'm just going to run this query again, and we'll see that now the data is stored in the database. And then if we go back to my tables and I refresh this, we will see that instead of having just customers, where we have that hello world there, hold on one second. Hello world, so we have the customer, the product, we have the sales orders and the sales order detail. Okay, so let's go back to our login and running this application. And we're gonna do a login. Sometimes there's a delay because the application has to be reloaded. We're using Tomcat here for Java, and it has to reload my application. Anyway, so there's my setup. We already looked at this. Now I'm going to go to, oops. As you probably noticed, I forgot to add it to the menu. That was totally my mistake. So we're going to go here and add another submenu, and we're going to call it sales. And underneath this submenu, we're going to add a web object, which is going to be my work with sales orders. And just I'm going to move it up and save it. So we're going to run this again. And it's going to probably, because we didn't have the sales order as part of the objects that needed to be in our project, they didn't even create them. So that's one of the things that if we had looked our navigation view, which tells me what programs are being created, we probably would have noticed that, and normally when we are actually doing development, we look at this list very carefully, because here it shows me exactly what GeneXus is going to do. For example, if we go to the sales order, we can see that it's going to go to the order, then it's going to go to the customer. To calculate this total, it's going to go to the detail, and from the detail to the product. Why to the product? Well, because the price is coming from the product. So it's going to do all of that code automatically for us, right? All the joins, all the sums, all the references, it's all automatic. I don't have to worry about any of that. So here it is. I'm going to just close my other tab so it doesn't get so crowded, and we can all keep understanding what we're looking at. So sales orders, now it's there. Good. No sales orders, so I'm going to create a new one. My ID is automatic, so it's going to be empty. It's just empty right now, but it's going to be assigned. Then there's the date. We have a date picker, but we just use the today as the default. Here's my prompt that I mentioned before. So that's my selection list automatically created for customers. I can add a new customer. I can just click on add, and it will take me to the screen where I can create a new one. I'm not going to do that right now. We've done enough of that, but I can just come here and select. So this is going to be an order for John. Brings me the customer name, the address, everything automatically, right? It's the same thing with the product. I'm going to buy some toilet paper, product number 10. I'm going to buy 15 rolls, well, 15, wow, $29.95. That's more than a roll, right? That's a pack. Okay, so I'm going to add another row. My formula is working. My total is working. I'm going to add another row here, product. I'm just going to type it so you see the difference. And I'm going to just buy one of these. And then I'm going to add a new row. And that was product number 30. And I want 5 of these. Okay, so you can see all my totals are working. All my formulas are triggered right away. As soon as I enter the quantity, the formula is triggered. There's my order. I can go back to my work with. There's my order there. I'm going to add another order that one was for John. So let's do one for Mike. And Mike is going to buy product number 10. And he's going to buy 5 of these. And maybe we also want him to buy product number 20 and confirm. So that's my order. And let's just do one more order so everybody is happy and all our customers are good customers buying stuff from us. And this one's we'll go to 30, and he's gonna buy 30 of product number 30 and just gonna confirm. So he only bought hand soap, doesn't need anything else. So we can go back to my sales orders, and there are my sales orders. Again, I can click on the customer, it takes me to the customer. I can click on the delete button, on the update button. I can just go to display mode. Oh, and I also have this option here, which allows me to report as a PDF or export as an Excel file. So here's my Excel, automatically created. And I don't know, I went to my other monitor. So anyway, and then if I do report, it should create a PDF, and it opens it right there. So all of that is functionality is created automatically. Also, I have the option to, let's get rid of that, hide automatically. Every column can be hidden just by selecting and save. So it hides the column or it shows it. So all of that functionality is automatic. I don't have to program anything, paging, etc. Okay, so far so good. So we are going to keep moving on. If you have any questions, write them down. So we're going to answer questions towards the end. I'm going a little quickly because I want to cover a lot of things, and we have a lot to show. So the next thing that I want to show you is, I said it was a dashboard, right? If you remember, I said I want to create a dashboard. So I'm going to create, not open, I want to create a new object. And in this case, I want to use our reporting, and I'm going to create a new query. So this query is going to be customer sales. So this is going to be basically sales by customer. So what do I want to show? Well, I just said I want to show the customer, the name, the ID. I'm just going to show the name. That's all we need. And then I'm also going to show the sales, which is going to be the sum of the sales orders. And this is just going to be, I'm going to rename this to be sales amount, nothing else. Okay, and then for parameters, although I don't need anything, I could just run the query and be done. I'm going to add a couple of parameters that are going to show you how this wouldn't work in real life. So I'm going to do a from date, and the from date, I'm just going to have the description say from, and it's going to be of data type date. And then I'm going to add to my parameters also a to date. And again, I'm going to repeat the same to, and it's going to be of data type date. And in my filters, I'm going to say that my sales order date, I don't want this default. I'm going to replace this with, it's going to be greater or equal, and variables start with an ampersand from date. Okay. And I'm going to repeat this pretty much the same, but to date, and I'm going to do a less than or equal. Okay, so I want all my sales from date to a date for all my customers. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm doing here. And if I want to, I guess I could also show, I'm just going to change my script here, but I'm also going to show my product name. So that way the table looks a little more interesting. So it's, instead of just two columns, we have a little more, we don't have that much data that we need to summarize so much. Okay, so how are we going to order this? I want to order this by customer name. And I'm going to save this query. And if I wanted to see what this query would look like, I could just go to, not what it would look like, but what is GeneXus thinking that this query should do? We can go to the SQL statement, and it will show me the query. Okay, so that's all the work we did in very quickly, right? We're pretty good SQL writers. Okay, and there's a preview and documentation, but I want to keep going here. So I'm going to I'm going to do a save as, and I'm going to create another query, which is going to be, instead of by customer, it's just going to be by product sales. And I'm just going to create it with, it's a copy. So I'm going to get rid of the customer name here. Just going to have my product. I actually, I'm going to get rid of my, I'm going to get rid of everything at the end. I don't want to show my sales total. I actually want to show my detail, either amount or quantity. We can choose. Let's just go with quantity since we did amount before. Doesn't make any difference. So this would be my sales. This is too long for a title. So I'm just going to do my sales quantity, or actually just quantity. So we know we're talking about sales. That's how we went in there. From to date, and in this case, I'm going to insert another filter, which is going to be customer, and I use customer name, and it's going to be equal to customer name. So I'm going to use the attribute and the variable with the same name. It makes it easy to understand what I'm trying to do. Okay, I'm also going to order by name, so that's fine. So now I have to put this in somewhere. I have to display them somewhere. And for that, we have a widget. Keep doing the wrong. And the widget is called the dashboard. So this dashboard is going to be called dashboard sales. Okay, and in the dashboard sales, we basically have a couple areas, and we're just going to drop these objects into the layout. So the layout is where we're going to go here to my toolbox, and we're going to grab this object and throw it over here. So we want to select the customer sales, let's say. So my customer sales, I'm going to display that as a table. So I'm not going to change any of the properties. I'm just going to leave the defaults, which is a table. And I can actually try it here if I wanted to. It does go and load the data. It's having some weird effect there. Okay. Anyway, maybe I'll get rid of these dates. I don't know. Never seen that happen before. Anyway, so let's go back to here and my toolbox. I'm going to select the object again, and I'm going to throw my other query down here. This is really bugging me. It's not letting me empty it, and it's doing this dance thing. Okay, so let's see if we can just go to properties, and I'm going to change the type of this property from pivot table to a chart. And the type of chart that I'm going to use, in this case, I'm just going to stay with column. Okay, and I'm going to say this. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a panel. It's called a web panel that is going to display this information. I'm just going to call it sales dashboard. And I'm happy to put that there. And this panel is going to be extremely simple. It's only going to have one object in it. And let's look at, these are all the different options I have, but I'm just going to go with a dashboard viewer. I'm going to throw it here. And when I do, it brings in some information that, you know, that I didn't use dashboards before this time. So it's bringing in the information you need. And then here, I'm going to select a dashboard. And the object that I'm going to use is going to be my sales dashboard. Okay, so I'm linking one to the other. So normally, I'm not going to go through that right now, but normally what you do in this object also is handle when someone clicks on a customer, someone clicks on a product, what happens to the other aspects of that screen. I'm going to create a new submenu, and this is going to be called dashboard. Actually, this could be just, it's only going to have one option, so I could just have it at the top level. But anyway, I like my menus to be all the same. So I'm going to add an object here, and that is going to be, what did I call this one? Sales dashboard. Okay, and I'm going to save that. So now I'm going to run this one more time. And we're going to wait a second. And this is a good time for you to be writing questions if you have any. We have some people waiting, helping me take care of questions, so I can concentrate on my demo here. So we're almost at the end. This is the last step, and now it's running. Okay, somehow it ended up on my other monitor. I'm going to bring it over. So here is my login again. If we did everything correctly, there's my dashboard. Now I'm going to go to my sales dashboard, and here it is, showing my sales by, I have to scroll a little bit, sales by customer, by product, and also I can select the different customers and it automatically refreshes my query. The other, I did something wrong because it's showing, yeah. So what I did wrong, probably, and we probably won't correct it, we just should point it out so that we know what we did wrong, is, well, I don't know, maybe something with my conditions, or I'm not sure. Sales order total, oh, this is what's wrong. I said I would want to change that, but I guess I didn't change it. Maybe I changed it in the wrong place. So this sum is incorrect. It should be adding not the order total, but it should be adding the line total, right? That's what's wrong. So we can correct it, but for now, I just want to see if maybe we have enough time to do one more thing, and then we're going to turn it over to questions. So I'm going to go back to my customers. So I have my customer here, and if I click on the customer, I can see the customer information. But what about the orders for this customer? So I want to show a tab here with my orders. And this is something that is very useful. It's used in so many systems. So I'm going to go back to my customer. I'm going to go to my entity services here. And this is my general. So I'm going to add here what is called a subword with. So something that is related, but it's not. And I already have one because it's related. Sales orders. I could do one I could just create one that is not related like this, but I could create it myself. Also, I want to point out that all I need to do to have a search or a click where I can click on a column and it orders it is to come here and create an order. So I can just click on something like this and just automatically create a, make that column be sortable. Okay, so this is actually probably going to be the last thing we do, and then I'm going to talk about a couple things that I actually didn't talk about, and then I'm going to open it up for questions. Oops, not there yet. I'm getting ahead of myself. So another 30 seconds for this to finish updating the application, and we will see our final result of this application. And I have a timer here, so I know that we've been doing this for about 28 minutes, the demo, if it's correct. It's 47 minutes past the hour, maybe 29 minutes. I think I took 13 or 14 minutes for the PowerPoint, and then another 30 minutes for the demo. So you can see how in just 30 minutes you can do so much. And that is what we are trying to show today. We're not trying to teach you how to do it. If you want to, I mean, we have demos, one-on-one demos. We have trial versions. We have all kinds of training videos that are available to everybody to use. So there's many options that you can take if you want to get trained in these tools. So we get into the last step, and now it's going to load the login one more time. So I just want to run through this one more time, login. Let's try one more time. There it is. And I'm going to go to my customers. And when I click on John, now I have a sales order tab. And when I click on the sales order tab, we can see that it just brings up just the order for John. So that is pretty much the end of my demo. So I'm going to switch over to the PowerPoint. I want to talk about what I did not talk about in the demo. And the things that I didn't talk about in the demo are, well, what we do is basically learning one tool gives you the chance to convert yourself into a full stack developer. Okay, and I'm going to be honest with you, the more you know about these underlying technologies, the better. But you don't have to know .NET and Java and HTML5 and CSS and JavaScript. I mean, at least you don't have to know this every one of these technologies in detail. Okay, so we generate for many programming languages. We use both for server side. We use Java and .NET, and then for applications we use Swift for iOS and Android for Android we use Java again, and we use different sub languages if you want for the Ajax and other things. So databases, we support all the major databases in the marketplace. We deploy locally, like I was doing, or we deploy to cloud. We have one-click deployment to many of these cloud offerings directly from the GeneXus IDE, or we also have a deployment tool that allows you to create deployments that you can then transfer to your production environment. We do interface with the major players in the artificial intelligence, and we have a common way of talking to them, so you could switch from one to another without having to redo all your code. We have a chatbot object that allows you to integrate with Watson, IBM Watson, and Dialogflow from Google for natural language processing. We have a business process modeler tool that allows you to create complex processes that are based on workflows. And we also have a testing application and a debugging application or tool. We have the option with one click to say this application is now a progressive web application, and it includes every aspect that it's needed to create it as a progressive web application. We also have the option of creating native apps for iOS and Android, so native Swift for iOS and Android Java for Android native applications. And that's all I have to say today. So we are going to open it up for questions and answers. So, Nicholas, I think you are going to take care of questions.
Thanks for that excellent presentation. We haven't received any question yet, so we'll wait a bit. So everyone there, please feel free to write in the chat, and Sergio will be honored to answer your questions.
So the first question we have is, with one knowledge base, can I generate for web, mobile, Android, and iOS? So first of all, let me explain that a knowledge base in GeneXus is basically like a project. So that would be what we call a project. In GeneXus, actually, the knowledge base, the programs and everything is stored in a SQL Server database. We don't ever go and inspect that database directly, but it's there. It's actually sitting right next to our data. If you in the same in this case, because I'm running a testing, right, it's sitting right next to my development computer in my SQL Server database. So basically, yes, we can generate from one project, one knowledge base. We can generate an application for web. We can generate it for iOS. We can generate it for Android. all of it from one definition, just by selecting what platforms I want to have. We have the option of having in GeneXus different environments, and an environment can have more than one platform, but I can also have different environments for different platforms. So not only can I have the same application for web, mobile, and Android, I can also have the same application using SQL Server and Oracle, or SQL Server and MySQL. I can have the same application running on Windows with C# SQL, or I could have it in Linux running Java and MySQL. The same exact GeneXus code will work in all those different platforms without any changes to the code.
For another question, I remember in your last webinar from last week, you mentioned GX Server. Can you tell us a bit about the advantages of working with GX Server?
Yeah, so GX Server it's a code management tool, version control, check in, check out, very similar to what you would find in Git. And it allows to different developers working in different even locations or the same location, but their own development environments, to share code, share the same knowledge base between different developers in a very efficient way, where each developer is not overriding another developer's code. GX Server also keeps track of all versioning so every time that an object is saved, it keeps a version of that object, and you can go back to a specific time. If you have changes that you want to undo, you can go back in time to what that object looked like before. Also, if when you bring changes from different users, if there's a conflict, it will analyze those conflicts and allow you to integrate those conflicts without losing any code. So GX is an extremely useful tool for groups, GeneXus developers, groups of 2 or more. I mean, I would highly recommend using it to manage your knowledge bases.
We have another question.
Can I connect my application developed with GeneXus with my existing database? So yes, the answer is yes. Not only that, but there's a reverse engineering tool that allows you to bring in existing database definitions directly into GeneXus and use it just as if it had been developed directly in GeneXus. Basically, not only can you use existing databases, but you can also use external APIs. It's very easy to bring in REST APIs or OData APIs. So integration, I would say that today it's almost impossible to build an application that has no integrations. Even a standalone application is at least going to integrate, let's say, with a credit card processing, maybe integrate with I don't know, UPS or FedEx, even if it's not integrated with other systems. But it's very easy to integrate with existing databases. Eduardo asks if are there any plans in creating new code generators for generating code in each of these programming languages, React and Kotlin? No, Eduardo, the question is actually on topic, so you don't need to apologize at all. So we're actually in the process of releasing an Angular generator. So in the short term, we're probably not going to have a React generator also, or Kotlin. A lot of the things that Angular and React and Kotlin are trying to resolve, actually GeneXus already solves them, and it has solved for a long time. So So we don't need to have so much overlap of things that are already solved in GeneXus with things that are solved by third-party tools. But I would say, unless maybe someone else in the call that is from the GeneXus team here has a different answer, I would say that the plan is to continue with Angular right now and not necessarily with React and Kotlin. I do want to add one more thing, which is that just like you didn't see me go into the Java code in this presentation that I was generating, or JavaScript or CSS, although I could, it's there, it's generated code, it's just text files generated, right? It's unusual that I would do that. If I have to do that, there are specific commands in GeneXus to insert native code, and I would use those instead of like modifying the code directly that has already been generated.
Yes, totally agree with what you were just saying, Sergio. It's the Angular generator we are working on. It's in the roadmap. Nicholas is now adding a link to information on that in the chat box. Maybe we have time for one more question. I think someone is writing. There, Leandro has a question.
Leandro is asking, I'm trying to install the last version of GeneXus, and I'm getting a message error that doesn't allow me to install it at all. So Leandro, I would say Nicolas or someone else will contact you. I mean, I do not have enough information to know what is going on there. So I don't know what the last version of GeneXus it is that you're trying to install, if it's GeneXus 16 upgrade 8. And what type of error you're getting. So maybe you need some more. You probably need to work with support. Maybe Nicolas can help you talk to the right person. So yeah, thanks, Nicolas. There's support@genexus.com. If you want to work with them, they'll help you get over the problem that you're having. So I think that was the last question that we were going to. We have time for. It's already a couple of minutes past the hour. I want to thank everybody that joined us today. It was really great having you, and I hope that we see you in our next webinars.
Thank you, Sergio, for the excellent presentation. Thanks to everyone for your participation and for your questions as well. Just a final reminder, the recording of this webinar will be available on the GeneXus webinar site and on our YouTube channel. Remember to check our next webinars on the new GeneXus webinar site, and check all the previous and upcoming webinars. All content is free and 100% online. So hope to see you again next, and please be safe.